Are you scared of the Starch Solution Tuesday? Because that's what we do now. And plus, then we get to use our Disney picture. Right? So today, we're super excited. So we've been coming and just hanging out with you and telling you about our journey. And we may still do part of that as part of this, but you keep hearing about this mysterious woman named Stacy. So Stacy Cross is here with us. And we're so thrilled about that. And she is both an RN and a support specialist with the Dr. McDougall program. And I'm going to let her introduce herself. And then if you guys want to put some questions and things like that into the chat now, we'll get to as many as we can. Sometimes, Stacy, people like to stay a very long time. So if you have a hard stop, you just let us know. Okay. And we went 2.5 hours last week.
And I have a podiatrist appointment, so we can't go way over today. So.
Okay. Because it's funny, we get people going, that's way too long. And everybody else is, no, longer. Okay, so Stacy, I'm going to switch over and let you introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Hi, my name is Stacy Cross. As Kathy said, I am a support specialist for the McDougall program. Love what I do. It's absolutely wonderful. I also am a registered nurse. I came into the McDougall program because I was looking for a pretty untraditional nursing job. I really, really wanted to help people get better. And I found exactly what I was looking for, exactly my dream job, working for the McDougalls and working with our amazing patients and getting to see people get better all the time. So yeah, that's really fun. I also created and moderate and run our alumni weight loss support discussion groups at the McDougall program. And that has been a new addition to what we do. And it's been wonderful. People are loving it. People are losing weight. It's a lot of people who have been stuck kind of at the same weight for a while. And I've been able to, create an environment where there's so much support, kind of some commiseration around the scale and how frustrating that can be. And that has been really good and just helping people get unstuck. But I also want to share that I personally have lost 55 pounds eating this way. So I've done it myself. And that's what made me want to create the weight loss discussion groups and all the work that I do as a support specialist with my patients. So much of it centers around weight loss. And it's because that's my passion, is to help other people lose weight. We had a person recently sign up for the McDougall program, and she came and spoke with Dr. Lim, and she was telling Dr. Lim all this stuff about her health history. And she was basically saying, I don't have diabetes, I don't have heart disease, I don't have autoimmune, basically squeaky clean, right? From a health perspective. And she said to Dr. Lim, but, I've got these 20 to 30 pounds that I want to lose. And that's really all I have going on. And she reported this to me. She said that Dr. Lim said to her, well, as long as you're carrying around that 20 to 30 extra pounds, you aren't healthy, which on the surface seems like a major diss, right? But I got what he was saying, which is, if we're carrying around extra weight, that's a side effect. That's a side effect of overnutrition. And it's just an indicator that, hey, our body's not in an optimal place, that we are increasing our risk of cancer, of heart disease, of all these things. And so, until we lose the weight, it's not vain to say you want to lose weight. I think people get really, they feel like even patients of ours, they feel like they have to say to us, well, I want to lose weight, but it's really about being healthy. And it's like, those are one and the same. They are the same thing. And it's okay to want to lose weight. It's okay to want to look good and feel good and wear your old clothes and that kind of stuff. So anyway, my passion, obviously, I love disease reversal. We do it all the time. We see it all the time in the McDougall program, and it's so much fun. But my passion is around helping people finally get the weight off and get to live the lives they deserve, free of that burden. So
I love that. Me. And you've seen me in the background run around, so I'm not seeing my YouTube comments like I'm supposed to. So I have it on my computer over here, so you guys if you notice and you're like, why is she not paying attention to me? I'm paying super attention to you even. So, so some of the YouTube comments aren't going to be put on screen like usual, but hello to Apple. And Apple says this is going to be good. Apple has had a weight loss journey of her own. And then I want to circle back too, because I had a real issue in a way, kind of coming to my community and start talking about weight loss. I think because I don't want anyone to think that I'm telling them to lose weight, but I want to lose weight. And so that's kind of interesting. And I saw a question here. Justine is here, and Kathy, and everybody's so excited. And Linda is excited to be here for today's discussion. And I'm going to find, okay. So S says, is this program just for folks with serious medical problems, or can anyone benefit? And I think that's a great question for you to go to while I'm looking at some of these.
Right. Well, first of all, before I answer that question, can we just go ahead and go on record? Kathy and Cheryl, you two have agreed that it's okay for me to share a little information about your medical history and your things that you came into the McDougall program with?
Absolutely. We've been sharing our stuff freely, from weigh-ins to blood pressure numbers and everything. So absolutely, you're more than welcome to use us as examples.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Wanted to definitely say that because I want everyone to know we take your privacy so seriously. And so anybody who comes through the program, I will not be on YouTube live and giving information about your medical history. So this is a unique situation where Cheryl and Kathy have both said that it's fine to do so on their show. So that's what we're going to do. So I wanted to say that because Cheryl, as many of you know if you've been listening, Cheryl was not actually actively participating as a patient in the McDougall program when Kathy initially signed up and came through. It was a few days into the program where Cheryl was actually having some health benefits from just doing the program alongside Kathy, where she realized, oh, I really need to get some medical supervision on board because she had some medications that would need to be adjusted. And that can be a dangerous situation when you are changing. And I want people to know the changes happen very abruptly at times, especially for people who are on diabetes medications or blood pressure medications. You know, it can be a little bit scary. We don't want anyone like passing out in the grocery store or anything like that. So having said that, definitely a lot of the folks who come through the program do have a medical condition where they're taking medications that could be altered or affected, I should say, by their participation in this type of diet, because they're really drastically changing their diet. Their disease, for the most part, is diet related. And so, yes, I mean, that is a huge reason why the McDougall program exists, because it can be problematic to try to do all that on your own without medical supervision. However, I will tell you, I cannot even count the number of times I've had people come in who have said, I have followed Dr. McDougall for 30 years. I have every cookbook. I've watched every free lecture. I've seen it all. I've heard it all. And I just cannot lose the weight. I cannot stick to the diet. I can't lose the weight. And they come through the program as sort of like their Hail Mary, like last ditch effort. Let's just see if this works. They're a little frustrated because they think they shouldn't need it. And 100% of the time when they complete the program, they go, that was the missing link. That was exactly what I needed to lose the weight, to finally get in the groove and understand, put knowledge with doing, because knowing and doing are two separate things, right?
Cool. Absolutely.
Knowing what you should do, yes, is so different from doing. And so often I feel like in life with this kind of stuff, we think we can just keep those things separate and somehow win, you know, and make it work. But you've got to put them together. And that's what I feel the McDougall program does better than anything, is you're going through, you're learning, some of us relearning, we're hearing, even if you have followed Dr. McDougall for decades, you'll hear things in a different way that somehow just click for you. And then you're right there with the daily support, you know, you're checking in with your support specialist every day. You have someone who you're accountable to, that you're actually putting these principles into practice. And then that person, that support person, whether it's me or Tiffany, they're with you for a year. So it is a year of support where this person's going, are you doing what you said you wanted to do? Are you doing what you invested in? For a lot of people, that's the missing link. That's why they haven't been able to do it on their own. And so you put those two things, the knowledge, the knowing, and the doing together, and it's like magic. So to answer your question in a way too long of a way,
No.
I will say, yes, you do not have to have a serious medical condition. And remember what Dr. Lim said, if you are one of these people that's just carrying extra weight and you don't have medical conditions, well, thank goodness, right? Thank goodness you haven't come face to face with that yet. But we all have the potential of waking up tomorrow with some really bad health news. And so getting in, finally taking care of the weight, realizing that you're worth the time that you invest and the money that you invest in it, is an absolutely worthwhile reason to come through the program.
And I wanted to ask, so just for everyone to know, what we're talking about with this year-long support and all that is the Dr. McDougall 12-day program. So there are a couple of different ways. It looks like there's free information on the website. There's the Starch Solution book. So there are different ways to do it. And what I've said too is it's not an inexpensive program, but you do get a lot for what you pay. You get doctor's visits. You get a support specialist for a year. You get cohort groups. So like twice a week, the people we went through the program with, we meet with. So I just want to be real clear about that, because a lot of times people are saying, sometimes people get confused and think there's a free 12-day program, but you can kind of make your own free program by checking out the Starch Solution. Or if you're an Audible member, you can listen to it for free. So there's different ways, but I do think that having someone there is super helpful, for sure too. So one of the things Christina is saying is there a certain calorie range that we should be staying in even when following the starch diet? I'm a volume eater, and kind of has a little kind of emoji. I will now interpretive dance of emojis for you.
Well, Christine, that's a great question. And the answer is no. We do not want people counting calories. We do not want you weighing or measuring your food. So a huge part of what we do is we are trying to basically get people back to the purest way of eating that we can put them in. And what I mean by that is this. When you came out as a baby, okay, and then as a toddler and as a child and all that, did you ever have to think about calories or portions or anything? No, you felt hungry, you ate. When you were full, you stopped. And that's because that's exactly what we're supposed to do as humans. And we can do it. It doesn't matter how much of a volume eater you are. It doesn't matter how many years you've been binging or whatever it is that your eating pattern may have been. You have the ability to relearn how to eat that way. And so, just as important as almost anything else that we teach, we really teach people, let's get back in touch with your body's signals, your hunger and fullness cues. We eat when we're hungry, we stop when we're comfortably full. And the more that you buck that by doing things like counting calories or weighing or measuring your food, which, by the way, I understand, I'm a total control freak. And so letting go of that, I had done another program that did points, which we all know what that is. And when I laid that down, it was so uncomfortable for me because I was like, oh, how am I going to know, but then the more I trusted the process and the more I believed what was being taught me about trusting my own body and my own hunger and fullness cues, the more I just saw right before my very eyes, my weight just drop off. And we see it all the time. So no, there's not a calorie range. Now, having said that, practice makes perfect. Perfect's not the right word. Practice makes progress, okay, when it comes to listening to your body's signals. You're not going to get it right at first. It's going to be clunky and weird. There are going to be times that you overeat. There are going to be times that you undereat. It's just going to take practice. And even I, who've been eating this way for like 6 years, I still have moments. I was just telling a patient this not too long ago. I totally overate the other day and I felt terrible. And it was like, oh yeah, that's what that is, and I hadn't done it in a while, but all that to say, your body will tell you what it needs. And the more consistently you can listen to it, the less and less you'll feel like you need those numbers and you need that data to know that you're in the right spot.
Okay, that's awesome. Cheryl, you said you wanted to.
So we kind of talked about that a little bit this morning, Stacy and I, because I kind of felt like I overate a few times last week. And, one of the things that Stacy suggested for me, because I was like, well, maybe I need to just, when I start to feel hungry, just sit there for 30 minutes and see if it goes away or not. And Stacy suggested that after I eat, if I'm put everything away and then I'm still feeling hungry, 30 minutes later after I go on with my life and do other things, then I pull it back out and I eat something else. But give my body time to signal to me what it really wants. And I thought that was great advice, and I appreciate that.
I think it totally is too. I think one of the big conversations going on in the whole food plant-based community right now, or at least it got pointed out to me, Joey of Plant Dads, who also does Starch Solution. You may already know that. So he came out with a video. He was very specific. Like, it's a great video, I think, for anyone to watch at any time. So he felt like he had been losing he's like, I'm great at losing weight. Every week I lose 3 pounds, and every weekend I gain 3 pounds. And so he was not being specifically on the program, but then he did a more daredevil thing than I'm willing to do. So he's like, okay, because I'm like you. I just want to I can't count calories. I can't count points. It makes me too weird about things. So, but he's not that way, right? So he actually did an experiment where he started having 1,200 calories a day and upped it until he didn't lose weight for a period of time and did this experiment. And so he feels like at his age, which is my age, his metabolism was lower than he expected it to be. And it seems like he's willing to count some calories to see how this difference goes. So I don't know if you've been hearing anything about that going on as well. So I know typically with the Starch Solution, and one of the reasons I love it very much is that is not a part of my life. But I think some older people who feel like their metabolism isn't as good, or maybe people who feel like they haven't been losing weight, on their version of the Starch Solution. And I say that because even here, when we're asking, they're like, oh, I'm whole food, plant-based, no oil. I eat nuts every day, or I eat bread every day. And it's not that those things aren't whole food, plant-based, no oil, because they are. And from what I've learned from you and Dr. McDougall, is that if you're trying to lose weight, though, these higher calorie density foods can slow that down. Even we had our appointments this morning with Stacy. So we ate too many of our once a week things that we've been telling you about. We had like everything twice a week. We had bread twice a week. We had chips twice a week, and our weight loss slowed. So I only lost 0.5 pound last week.
Me too.
And normally we lose 1 or 2 pounds a week. So I think, and I'm going to give you a lot of time to explain this, but so sometimes I wonder, if I hadn't been, just because we're ridiculously honest, I think, with you, we'll be like, we thought we were going to eat pizza, but we didn't, or something, So I feel like we're like in confessional, and I think other people may not really just hone in on the things that they're putting in. Tell me what the difference is and how you would say, pay attention without being obsessive about it.
Yeah. Wow. What a great question. And I think, you said his name is Joey. I'm familiar with who he is. He's fantastic. He has a great channel and all of that. And so anything that I say in response to his experiment that he ran and what he's doing is not about him. It's just generalities. Okay. tell you generally why I do not like calorie counting. So here's the issue. So the issue is that so when you go in, and by the way, there's a million different calorie calculators that you can find online that tell you how many calories you should eat, your basal metabolic rate, and then it'll tell you based on your activity level, whether you're sedentary, active, or moderate,
I
or
learned that
whatever
from
it is.
his video, Stacy.
Yeah.
I had never knew what BMI really was. I was very innocent. So thank you for saying the whole words.
Okay, so BMI is actually different. So basal metabolic rate is the rate, how many calories you burn doing absolutely nothing. Like if you were not to get out of bed all day long, everybody has a basal metabolic rate of how many calories their body burns. It's usually based on your height, your sex, and maybe your age. Don't quote me on that, okay? That's your BMR. BMI is your body mass index, and that is based on your height. And I think that's it, your height and your weight. And so okay, so I'm just going to address this real quickly because I want to make sure everybody knows this. So BMR is a calorie count. You'll put in there your age, your sex, your height, and it'll spit out, you burn this many calories doing absolutely nothing all day long. Okay, great. And then the idea is the more active you are, the more exercise you get, the more, more active your job is, things like that. Like people like nurses in a hospital are going to burn more calories than a computer programmer who sits at a desk all day, that kind of stuff. Then that further bumps how many calories you burn every day. And so you can get online and they'll give you a thing. And so they'll tell someone like me, oh, your BMR is, 1,300 calories. I'm just guessing 1,300 calories a day. But if you work out and you burn 500 calories a day, then you can eat 1,800 calories a day and stay the same weight. Okay. So that is like minimally helpful. It gives you sort of a ballpark, but there's a lot that it doesn't take into consideration. How fidgety are you? What's your personality type? High-strung type people, or more like prone to maybe anxiety, those types of people tend to move more. Are you a more subdued personality? Are you likely to park in the back of a parking lot because you're so frustrated trying to find parking, you're like, forget it, I'm just going to walk a mile to the place, versus someone who will drive around 15 times to get the spot in the front? All of these things make a difference. So that's why I'm telling you, calorie counting is almost useless, or calorie counts, like calorie goals, are almost useless because there's so much that is not considered when it spits out a calorie value for you to follow. Okay. The other thing is that we don't burn the same number of calories every day. A thing I get a ton with our patients is they are all freaked out because they've had, 5 days of great eating where they feel like they're eating a reasonable amount of food and they're losing weight and all this stuff. And then day 6, they're super hungry and they're insatiable and they can't stop eating. And they're totally freaked out because they're like, oh no, I'm losing my grip on this thing. Like, I'm never going to make it. And that's because we've been taught our whole lives that every day is the same. You should not be any hungrier today than you were yesterday. And you should eat exactly 1,500 calories every day for weight loss. That's all wrong. Your body does all kinds of things that you don't know throughout the day. And from day to day, that can change. What I tell people all the time, I think I probably have told Kathy and Cheryl this is my example that I give. When it comes to hunger and fullness and choosing to go off of your hunger and fullness cues rather than some arbitrary number, what happens is you are able to actually respond to your body's cues and give it exactly what it's asking. If you say you're going to go off some arbitrary number, that is similar to, let's say I'm sitting here having this interview with y'all. And, oh, by the way, I say y'all, you guys, I live in Texas. I'm sorry. Sometimes professionally, I try not to say it. Okay.
Y'all make sense.
Well, sometimes professionally, I try not to say y'all, and then it just slips right out, and I'm like, I blew it. But anyway, I'm going to say y'all. Here we go. Okay. So anyway, So let's say we're doing the interview or whatever, and we get off the interview and I get the feeling like I need to go to the bathroom. Okay, well, what am I going to do? I'm just going to go in there and go to the bathroom. There's not going to be a whole conversation with myself about it. But let's say half an hour after that, I have to go again. Well, that's a little strange because I don't normally have to go every half hour. But as I'm sitting there questioning it, what am I doing? I'm walking to the bathroom because I'm not going to deny my body. When it tells me I need to go to the bathroom, I'm not going to go, well, it's not time to go to the bathroom yet. Well, I went to the bathroom half an hour ago. Why should I need to do that? I must have done something wrong yesterday. I better blah, blah, blah. No, of course not. You just go and you think that was weird. And then you move on with your life. You know, eating and drinking should be the same way. It is yet another biological mechanism of your body. It is a signal that your body's giving you, your brain is giving you to tell you what it needs. Why shouldn't we follow that signal and just eat? And likewise, the fullness cue is the same. Your body tells you exactly when it's done and it's had enough. We need to follow that. Is it perfect every time? No. May you stumble through what fullness actually feels like? Yes, especially if you've been ignoring that or eating under your hunger drive for any length of time. It may be hard to find that sweet spot. That's okay. Let it be clunky. Let it be a mess for as long as it takes for you to settle into trusting your body's signals. I'm pretty sure I have completely lost what the original question was.
No, you did great. No, and I love this. So, okay, you've just kind of blown my little mind. So, like, we've had it on you. So I've just been like, what? Because it's such a simple thing that you said. However, like, we don't assign these emotional values to most of our bodily functions, right? I don't go, oh, I can't believe I need to sleep again. I slept yesterday. What, no, right? Like, we're like, of course I have
to go take a nap. You're just like, okay,
yeah,
I gotta go take a nap.
My body is telling me I need to take a nap. And sometimes if I'm starting to get sick, my body will tell me to go take a nap so that I don't get sick. Mm-hmm. But I will argue with my stomach. You're not hungry. I just ate. What's going on with you? Why? Oh, it must be, and then I turn into amateur psychologist, right? Well, I have no idea, right?
Sometimes I second guess if I have to go to the bathroom or not.
People are weird. It's not just us. It could be you too. But if you feel a little weird sometimes, it's pretty much all of us.
Yeah.
But I love the way you talk, because I would never go, well, I have to pee.
Right.
Let me analyze that. I'd just be like, well, I just have to, right? Because I do think that and it's one of the reasons I was even hesitant to talk about and to use the word weight loss. See how hesitant I am? Like, it takes a lot for me just to say it, because society and a lot of other things have put a lot of heavy stuff on something that really is just, my body isn't feeling good at this weight, so I want to be a different weight. It was real easy when I had fatty liver, because the cure for my fatty liver is to lose, the first step is lose 20% of my body weight. So so it's becoming easier for me to say, mm-hmm, I am losing weight, right? Or I'm trying to lose weight. But there's so much societal things around it.
Well, and also, like if you've done like intermittent fasting and things like that, like, it has its benefits for sure. Some people can do it better than others. I did it for a really long time, and I used it to keep my blood sugar in check. And basically, I was cutting out an entire meal in the morning, so I wasn't eating breakfast free. So yeah, I was getting nice low numbers because I wasn't eating anything. It also, between that and the Ozempic, my hunger cues might be a little skewed. And I'm starting to realize that now, that, like, I'm more tolerant of being hungry, but am getting less tolerant of it. So I think that's why I thought I overate this past week, because I actually was feeling that hunger cue kick in. And I was like trying to fight it, kind of thing. But then I was like, no, I'm going to eat. And then I ate a whole nother plate of food. And then I felt guilty about it because, it's like, I'm not supposed to eat 2 big giant plates of food, but I just got to listen to my body.
And it is hard to do sometimes. And I think, if you were, because someone is saying here that I seem to always eat too much. Instead of stopping when I'm full, I clean my plate. I blame my mother. She always made us eat everything on her plate, and I'm 80. And some other people are saying, I found staying low on the calorie density is far more helpful than calorie counting. Besides, I ain't got time to count. And just the idea, like whenever someone goes, like I have a friend who's going to be on tomorrow, Katya Gorbachova, who is a vegan bodybuilder. And my God, she's amazing. But she counts all her things. She has to. She's an athlete. It's a different deal, right, than a normal person. She is like, it's crazy seeing her in person.
Everything she puts in her mouth because she has to stay within a certain weight to stay in a certain category.
To do the thing. But like, so when we were talking, she's like, oh, I could show you this app where I keep track of my macros. And immediately I was about to break out into hives because like, I'm also, so I think it's hard for normal people, but I'm a recipe every day. I have to put in every single thing to make a recipe. So it's like 10 times worse than being a normal person with it. Now I do have, and Joanne
Kathy?
says, yes, ma'am.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I have to address that friend of ours that said the thing about she's 80 and she blames her mom because that is so common. That's like everybody, right? My suggestion is just serve yourself a smaller plate. Just a smaller plate, a smaller portion. Yeah, I mean, you can use the same size plate, but just do a smaller portion. That way, when you feel like you have to clean your plate, you're not stretching yourself past the point of comfort to do that.
That's brilliant. And one of the things, actually, Cheryl years ago made us buy smaller plates, and then she will now only use the largest plates, which means I have to keep rearranging where the plates are kept. So that is my only, how much she's eating or not, I could care less. I just want my drawer the way it's supposed to be. Now do you see why I count calories, right? And I think that's a beautiful idea. And one of the things that I've done in the past when I had lost some weight before is like I would have a favorite bowl that probably would be a smaller portion size than everything else, but like go to TJ Maxx or Home Goods and get this bowl that like rocks your world. Of course, we have new Halloween dishes, right? Because Halloween rocks our world. Yeah. And so we have our special Halloween oatmeal balls, and she's getting them out now. These are a little bigger, but like so. There's Mickey. And so sometimes, especially if you're already having weird feels, because like one of the things that is so awesome, Stacy, about having you is that I get to go, I'm having all the weird feels, and then we talk about them. And so just try and do something too that while you're changing up everything, you have something that's like a special treat, like maybe I've been thinking, because we've been snacking a little bit after dinner, which we both want to stop. So I want to start taking a bath. I also started making our tea. So sometimes with me, and this is what I do, like if I have a food craving or something, typically I make a healthy version of it, right? So that's kind of how I react to things. So if Cheryl wants something, I can make it. But I think having some little treaty thing can be nice. I don't know if you have some things like that you do.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I love air popped popcorn, and I'll spray it with coconut aminos, and that feels like a treat to me. And I'll have that with like a sparkling, one of these like flavored sparkling waters. That feels almost like going to the movies or something, and like how you used to get a Coke and the popcorn or whatever. I really enjoy that. Yeah.
Someone on here actually told us this. So we're doing microwave popcorn in one of those glass things, and we're putting 2 tablespoons of pickle juice in with the corn kernels, and it makes it taste salty. It doesn't taste like
You
salty.
don't taste the pickle at all.
It's crazy.
Yum.
So it's not my idea, but I am spreading the word. So you should try that too.
It's awesome.
I'm going to do it today. That sounds amazing.
And let's see. We've got a lot of questions in here. So, okay, let's start with this one. This is a great one for you. Trinity says, I've been following the McDougall plan for 3 years. I still have 20 pounds to lose, but stuck and frustrated. So while we're talking, I'm going to say, Judith, what would you like Judith to put in to maybe give you some information? Is there some questions you would normally ask?
Yeah. Well, the big one is, how much are you eating things like nuts and seeds, dried fruit, fruit juices, and then dry starches, breads, baked goods, popcorn, crackers, and these all being compliant things. So they don't have oil, they don't have animal products, and they're perfectly healthy things, but sometimes they can slow or even stop your weight loss, especially when you only have those last 20 pounds to go. So that kind of information would be helpful, but likely it's something like that. Or to answer Judith and also back up to where we were talking about the plant-based dad guy, Joey. So oftentimes when I hear things like that, like I'm stuck, it's the last 20 pounds, I find that it's like once people get below 40 or 30 pounds, they start having to tighten the screws a little bit, and it's a little bit uncomfortable. So, so typically what I see, especially how Joey was saying, oh, well, I'll lose 3 pounds during the week and then I gain it back over the weekend. It's not because he's eating too many calories. It's because he's indulging in things on the weekend that may be completely McDougall compliant, but are not weight loss friendly. So maybe he's having, tofu scramble and toast on Saturday instead of his normal oatmeal. Maybe he is going out to a movie with the family, and having a little popcorn or something like that. Maybe he's making muffins with his kids, and that's part of what they do on the weekends is they cook things that maybe make recipes that are a little bit richer than they would normally have during the week. It's usually stuff like that. That's why the calorie counting is not especially helpful. It just doesn't give you the information you need to be able to make a suggestion. Really what I need to know is, what are you eating? And how consistently are you eating that? Because Judith may come back to us and say, oh, well, I eat this, 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 and this. And if that's only applicable to Monday through Thursday, I really want to know what's different on the weekends, because you'll do up and down, up and down, up and down till the cows come home, until you become consistently low in your calorie density 7 days a week. And I hate that that's what it takes, because it's hard. It's hard when your pattern has been to loosen up a little bit on the weekends with totally compliant, healthy things. It's hard to scale back on that. But I just tell people, you know what? The sooner I can get you past this weight loss process, the happier you'll be. So let's just tighten up on the weekends. Let's be consistent Monday through Sunday, instead of just Monday through Thursday. And that usually unsticks them.
One of the things I just wanted to mention, like about Joey, when I watched his video, when it was pointed out to us, I was afraid that I was going to go, oh no, but I didn't, because one of the reasons why was he like us is incredibly transparent, and in the video he even laid out what he was eating on the weekends, and he was like, I know that this is what it is, and he would rattle off some of the things that he would eat, and I mean, he knew it. And so it was just about his wanting to tighten down and things. And I think that the way he's doing it, if it works for him, that's fantastic. But
so my worry about that though, is that what happens when people count calories is that you guys have all, I know that you've been here. I've been here a billion times, which is I'm counting points or calories or whatever it is. And I get to the end of the day and I'm out. I'm so out of points or calories or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I am starving.
Yeah.
That is a total recipe for disaster, because even if you're able to push it, ignore your hunger for a meal, a day, 3 days, that builds. So your hunger drive is a deep-seated program, biological drive, just like breathing, thirst, going to the bathroom, all of those things. It is in there. It is in there to keep you alive. And so for us to think or expect at all that our will win out over that biological drive is absolutely incorrect thinking. We will never win. We will lose at some point, whether it's tonight or tomorrow or the next day. We will lose because your body will get what it perceives that it needs for your survival. And so that's why I don't like calorie counting. Now, if it works for, I am a fan of the, if it works for you, go for it. But yet I can predict that it's not going to work, only because I know that he's going to have that dark night of the soul thing where he gets to the end of the day and he's starving and he's out of calories. And he is going to literally feel that biological drive to do whatever it takes to get calories in. And by the way, when that happens, we don't go for carrot sticks and celery sticks. No, we do not. We go for the most calorie dense food in our environment on purpose for our survival, you know? And so anyway, I wish him nothing but the best. And I think if this is what a part of his process that he wants to go through and feels that he needs to go through, that's perfectly fine. I just want to say to everybody who's listening right now or anyone who will watch this recorded, I really don't believe that's the solution. You know, I believe it's usually about calorie density and being consistent.
And I totally agree with you. I just know it's going to be things roll through the community all the time. So but Myra was saying if I undereat or restrict and try to stay too low on calorie density, like 300 calories in a meal, I will overeat at some point in the future. Now, one thing I will say that Joey's been doing recently is making his 400 calorie meals, but they're very volume. It's not, here is my tiny piece of peanut butter toast. It's like, here is,
giant bowls of
food, which is kind of where I feel like calorie density, like in Dr. McDougall and the Starch solution, I feel like that's one of the things that gets really right. I do think that we have to be careful when we're eating higher calorie density. We need to pay really good attention of calorie density, which I will say, I didn't pay so great attention last week, or I did, and I was like, hello, you're not supposed to be here, but we'll fix that later, right? Which is never a good plan.
Well, we messed around and found out.
Yeah.
So.
A little bit, yeah. And I mean, again, nothing horrible happened. The world didn't, Stacy didn't fire us because we didn't lose enough weight this week. And,
And we still lost a half a pound, but there was a lot of drama getting to that half a pound this morning.
Yeah, I mean, we both felt weird, and the good thing is having that support. Mm-hmm. And so we can say, hey, we messed around, blah, blah, blah. And I think, I'm assuming we maybe do this a little quick. I think we tell on ourselves so fast, you don't have to really dig. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but I feel like we're like, okay, we've thought about going here. It's like the first things out of our mouths. So you're not digging a lot to go, did you get that? Did you have a tortilla? Did you, that it's very easy to see where the mess.
Yeah, and like she was talking about, that hunger drive eventually gets you. Like, there's been a few times where I have actively felt like I could eat before I go to bed. Like, I've stayed up too late and my body's already going like, hey, it's been 5-6 hours. You need to have another meal because you're not sleeping yet. And I've ignored that. And it's taken me a little while to fall asleep because it's sitting there going, don't you want to go get something? Go get something. Go get something. And then I go to sleep, but when I wake up in the morning, that hunger drive is like, hello, we're eating now. We're not waiting. You need to go upstairs and get your oatmeal. We need to sit down and eat the oatmeal because you messed around and didn't feed me last night. So,
well, and Cheryl has been amazing. So since the program, pretty much since the day after the program, she makes oatmeal the night before in the slow cooker. So anyone who's going, but how do I do that? 1 cup steel cut oats and about 4 cups of water. Throw it in your slow cooker on low. If it takes longer than 8 hours, it will be fine. Yeah. If you get up at 7 hours, it will be ready.
When you
it's
get
like
up around
magic.
12 hours, though, it gets a little
just
crunchy.
Put a little more water in there. You'll be fine if you had a good sleep. But so that's what we tend to eat every day. Mm-hmm. And so, and I will say that having that, even if I wake up and I'm not hungry, because I'm still trying to re-engage with that hunger. Like I think I've ignored it so long that sometimes it's like, well, you don't listen to me. And so now I'm trying to wait. So like sometimes I won't eat breakfast until 1 o'clock if that's the way it feels. And sometimes like we went on a walk and we came back and immediately ate. And we're just kind of still feeling our way around. And I love that the McDougall program gives you a way to kind of do that. Also eat in whatever you're... And this could be me speaking because I know I can make all of my comfort foods. Like I don't want to slather everything in gravy, but I can make mashed potatoes in gravy and I can have that. And I'm using oats to make my gravy. So I feel, I'm not putting a bunch of cashew on it or I think now there's even heavy whipping cream you can buy at the store that's vegan, and none of that stuff is going to work, but you can, you get mashed potatoes and baked potatoes and all the potatoes you can hold, which I feel like is such a wonderful thing. It's really easy to bring you in. Now, I do have a couple of other questions. Did you want to address anything that I said before we go on? I'll give you...
Well, I could address every single thing.
Go for it.
But I will say one very quick thing. Is when Cheryl was describing, she stayed up late and then she got hungry and all that. I hear this all the time. Most of the time, you guys, when we have an issue with evening or nighttime eating, it's because we should be asleep, like 9 times out of 10. Because when the sun goes down is really when your body really should be lying down to go to sleep. But how practical is that in our world right now? Not very, right? So just know that usually if you're getting hungry again before bed, it's just because you're still awake when you really should be sleeping. There is very rarely actually a need for you to put more fuel into your body right before you go to sleep. So I just wanted to give that as a disclaimer. I say eat when you're hungry, stop when you're comfortably full. That is true. But if you're starting to feel hungry at 9:30, just take a minute, and go, how hungry am I? Because I will get hungry at that time sometimes and get so hungry that I know it's going to keep me awake. So I have to have something. And in that case, I'll have like a little bowl of oatmeal or something like that. But if you're checking in with yourself and you're going, I feel hungry, but I also feel like it's going to be okay, that is a safe and appropriate time to go ahead and go to sleep rather than respond to the hunger drive, because the hunger drive is only revving back up because you're awake when you should be asleep. I hope that makes sense.
Oh, it totally does. And we've talked about this too. So like, I think having 12 days of like completely regimented things, we're like, woo, we're staying up till 1. So I'm still getting my going to bed and being asleep by 11 under control. And there is a period of time that you just start getting hungry or thirsty. So like, again, we've done this before, and we did this a couple of nights ago, and I made us some ginger lemon chamomile tea to try and encourage us to go to sleep, and we slept great. So like having that tea was an opportunity, in fact, because then it kind of helped us with some other things. And the King says to you particularly, Stacy, congratulations on your weight loss and your willingness to help others, and we all appreciate you for sure. I have a couple of
Diana's question.
Yeah, I tried to wait just a little while. It's a medical question, so you may or may not want to answer, but I'll. So Diane says, my fiance is diabetic, and you always hear to not eat carbs. Please speak on eating grains, potatoes, and fruits. He's been sick a lot and cannot keep food down. High blood pressure, diabetic, and AFib. And so...
Come to the McDougall program.
I would say the same, right? Get medical attention to this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all the information that's out there, mainstream, that you're going to hear about diabetes is limit your carbs, eat more fat, more protein. And it's all backwards. It's just very unfortunate that that's kind of what the medical establishment has been taught, and that is what is passed down to us as patients and as consumers of the medical establishment. So Dr. McDougall talks about this all the time. In med schools, generally, nutrition has not been a big part of the curriculum. And I can tell you from going through nursing school, it was very limited. And it was exactly that. We had a diabetic patient. It was like, whoa, count their carbs, be real aware of their carbs. I think probably most people who are listening here to your channel, Kathy and Cheryl, are aware that all carbs are not created equal, right? So complex carbohydrates, which are plant foods, are very health promoting, and they're great for diabetics. And it turns out that the issue with diabetes is really fat and not carbs. We can tell you all about that. You can read all about it on the website on drmcdougall.com, drmcdougall.com. Just go into the search engine and put diabetes, and you'll see he has several lectures also on YouTube about diabetes that you can go and look at and understand a little bit better what his stance is on diabetes and why carbohydrates are not the thing to blame. One that I really love is Jane Esselstyn. She's also a registered nurse, and she did this demonstration one time. She uses like little cars and balls or something. I don't remember, but she has a video on YouTube where she is describing what the issue is with type 2 diabetes and that it's fat and not carbohydrates. I just like it because it's a simple, visual, straightforward explanation of why it is fat and not carbohydrates. But anyway, so really what someone who has diabetes would benefit from is a low-fat, starch-centered diet, which is the McDougall diet. You want to eliminate oil. You want to eliminate animal products. You're definitely not trying to eat a higher fat diet. You need to go low fat because basically your cells are all globbed up with fat. And that is what creates an issue where the glucose can't get into the cell to be used as energy, to be burned as the fuel that glucose is supposed to be. So, anyway, so that's kind of like the very rough sort of description of what it all is. But the answer, I promise you, is not to go low carb. No, not at all. I think he would greatly benefit from a starch-centered diet. We could definitely help him at the program. I realize that not everybody can go through the program right now, and that's perfectly fine. All of the information about the McDougall diet and how it helps all these conditions and what exactly you should do, all of it is available for free on our website because Dr. McDougall and Mary and Heather are all incredibly generous and believe that this is information that should be for absolutely everyone, whether you have the means to go through the 12-day program or not. So please do go to drmcdougall.com and read more about it. And if you're able to join the program, we'd love to have you. That's exactly what we do is we take people who are maxed out on diabetes medication and cholesterol medication and a lot of people with autoimmune illnesses and things like that. And our goal is to put them on this way of eating and to reverse or arrest the progression of their illness. And so we'd love to have someone just like your husband come through and be able to help him.
Yeah, and I agree. And I've been telling people too, because I'm definitely team, if you can afford it, do it. And some people may never be able to afford it. And so I do also drop some links in. I don't have it in right at the second. I'll come back and put it in to the free program. And there are some groups out there that you can do and kind of cobble together some support because, things cost money because a lot of people are in those works, right? So they all need to pay their mortgage just like we do. So I think it's important to remember that if you can get this medical help, and it would be great to get it from your general practitioner if it's possible. Our general practitioner's like, what you doing? this is great. I will go look into it and read the book, right? So feel real good about that. And some are going to be like, diabetics can't have potatoes, right? So you've got to gauge what you have, and you might have to switch things around if you're not able to come to the program. Like what I loved too is like you get to, you purchase a call with Dr. Lim, and if you join the program, that amount gets taken off of you joining the program. And that was really important to me because I'd had a bad doctor experience. And Dr. Lim he's lovely. He's so lovely, and he's so holistic. I feel, I felt really seen and heard with him. So even if you maybe don't have enough money to take the whole McDougall program, you might be able to at least have a consult with him and kind of get the ball rolling. So it depends on where you are, what your issue is. I do have another person, I don't even know how to say this. Is it sarcopenia? Sarcopenia. Thank you. Or Alzheimer's. What's the effect of starch solution, long-term effect on those things?
Well, I cannot answer that question.
Okay. And it's okay. It's okay if you can't. Then we can,
right.
You can always kind of come and maybe follow up on some McDougall forums. You could also show up for Dr. McDougall's live on YouTube on Sunday nights. So, because Stacy, you are a support specialist and an RN, so I do not expect you to know all of the medical specialties and be able to answer every question. Obviously, I couldn't say it, so I know nothing about it.
I'll give you a rough answer. So, Alzheimer's, sarcopenia. So sarcopenia is like I believe it's like a muscle loss thing, age related, but and then it's steady decline. And so is, Alzheimer's is a different thing, but it's also, universally progressive, right now. So there's been a lot of great science around how a plant-based diet can slow the progression of progressive illnesses like that. I can't speak specifically to what the McDougall diet has done on sarcopenia. That is something you should feel totally free to ask Dr. McDougall if you see that he's appearing on Chef AJ or even on our channel. He gets on and does question and answer sometimes, or you could write to us and you could send an email to him. But I don't have specific information about the impact of the diet. All I know is that no matter what your illness is, no matter what disease process we're talking about, we also know that this way of eating a plant-based diet, starch-centered diet, puts your body in the best fighting shape that it can be in. And so I tell people, occasionally we do have someone who comes through who's been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and maybe they've had it for 30 years and darn it, it just doesn't reverse. It's not reversing. And they're disappointed, of course. And so are we, because most of the time we do see, at least the progression stop, or even with diabetes, sometimes it actually seems to reverse, which is amazing. We see it all the time, but sometimes it doesn't, right? And so when I'm talking to folks like that and they're disappointed because they still have to take their medication or something like that, I remind them that, hey, goodness only knows what types of illnesses and diseases you have spared yourself by doing this diet. And maybe your diabetes wasn't cured, but maybe you were headed towards, brain cancer, or maybe you were headed towards a heart attack or something like that. And because you took on this diet and you made this lifestyle change, that's not a part of your story. And we'll just never know what all could have happened. So I still say, no matter what disease you're talking about, and if you're not able to find research that suggests that a plant-based diet fixes it, it's still going to put your body in the best possible condition it can be in for whatever life throws your way.
I think that's a great way to. It didn't unmute both places like it did before. Sorry about that. that it's good to think about it like that, because it doesn't hurt you and it could help you. And it's, while we're talking about the minutia of things that we may or may not be struggling with, in the scheme of health at this point, it's pretty minutia. Mm-hmm. We wake up, we take walks, we are able to do all the things we want. You know, Cheryl's energy is up so much more and she can do so much more. Mm-hmm. And so even if you're just kind of like, well, I don't know, what we've suggested from what we experienced is if someone should just try it for a week. You know, go to the website, look it up for free, eat whole food, plant-based, no oil. If you want to lose some weight on it too, maybe avoid nuts, seeds, and avocados and toast for that week. But in 4 days, we saw a different, like literally we were not as inflamed. Now I know we are not everybody, but I suspect in a week you're going to feel a little different. I didn't notice anyone in our cohort who at least expressed that they didn't feel something different in that first week.
Yeah.
Would you say that's pretty typical?
Absolutely. No question at all. And I'll tell you one reason why it's so helpful, I think, to go through the 12-day program. Up until that point, most people who come through have not had 12 days in a row of sticking with the diet. Mm-hmm. And Kathy and Cheryl can probably speak to this better than anybody. What an amazing start that is, 12 days under your belt of sticking to the diet. What happens is you begin to sort of dig that very shallow groove. That 12-day time to feel like, okay, I remember you ladies showing up to one of your meetings towards the end and going, okay, like this is not that hard. This is not that complicated. And to get to have that happen while you're under our wing for 12 straight days really gets you off to a great start to be able to continue it long term.
You were already unmuted.
And I
It was unmuted.
It literally, we saw the button. It said unmuted, and then it was muted. Thank you. I used to think it was just me not paying attention, and now I have someone to tell me no, I did click the button.
You were not crazy.
But there is something about doing it. So, like, while some of you may hear us talking now about looking at some of this minutia, it is just that, right? It's so easy to eat potatoes and vegetables and grains and beans and have some powders or sauces on there to make something taste good, because like it's so much easier than you think. And a friend of ours, again, was like, I think I want to do Mary's Mini. I'm like, why do you want to do Mary's Mini? Because we talk a little bit about how we're just doing the regular program. We're not doing the maximum weight loss. So some of our tweaks are tweaking towards maximum weight loss. We're still like team tofu once a week. We're still towing that line. And Mary's Mini is you pick a starch and you have it every day, every meal for 10 days with vegetables and some of your sauces. And I'm like, well, why do you want to do that? Because I keep saying, do you feel like you're having a lot of cravings? Do you feel, well, I just want to lose weight really fast? And I'm like, you can't take that kind of monotony. I know her. This is not me talking to all of you. Like Cheryl, she can do that kind of monotony. But she's like, well, I don't need that. And I'm like, why aren't you looking at just doing the regular one? Because you talked me into doing the regular one to begin with. And it's kind of interesting because people are always wanting to find this thing that's going to be hard, but why don't we let it be easy? And we've been doing it for 2 months now. So even in us being easy, we're still paying attention and analyzing things because that's the kind of people we are. Mm-hmm. But if today goes bad, tomorrow then we just make it easy and we can have some rice and steamed vegetables with a sauce on it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole thing about doing Mary's Mini to kind of maximize the weight loss, right? So just for anybody who's listening is like, what the heck are you talking about? Let me just clarify. So we have the regular McDougall way of eating, okay? And the idea is that way, which is very beautifully outlined in the Starch Solution book that Dr. McDougall wrote, that is meant to be the way that you eat for the rest of your life, okay? And then within that, there are certain guidelines that we have based on what your goals are. We do have people who come with a goal of gaining weight. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to tell them to go up on the calorie density scale, right? People who want to lose weight, you're going to have to go lower on the calorie density scale, that kind of thing. Maximum weight loss is one iteration of the McDougall way of eating that is basically providing further guidelines that say, even though nuts and bread and those kinds of things are healthy foods that you can include when you're just maintaining your weight, you may be slowing down your weight loss. And so let's try maximum weight loss. And Mary's Mini is like that too. Like, and oftentimes we talk about Mary's Mini more like a reset for people who've kind of been off in the pasture doing their own thing for a while. Sometimes Mary's Mini is good to just get people refocused on simple eating. I did with a patient a couple weeks ago, I did essentially a Mary's Mini for 3 days because she was feeling funky. And I thought, let's just do this together. I'll do it with you. And it was so nice. It was such a mental break for me. Like I just never had to think about food. I knew exactly what I was going to eat. And it was really refreshing. I was surprised. I thought I was going to suffer because I haven't done a Mary's Mini in like a million years, but it was great. It was really nice. But those are tools, okay? So I personally always encourage my patients to see Mary's Mini and maximum weight loss as tools that you can lean into or lean out of, depending on what you're trying to do and what your needs are at that moment. Though, by and large, I feel like don't over restrict no matter what. The two of you have, I don't even know how much weight y'all want to lose, but I know that it's more than 50 pounds. Okay. Each of you have more than 50 pounds still that you want to lose. Most people who have more than 50 pounds to lose will lose weight at a very good rate for a while, just eating the regular McDougall diet. So why would I go ahead and put you on Mary's Mini right now or on maximum weight loss right now? We don't know how long your journey is going to be. So the less I can restrict you, the less restricted you can feel for the longest amount of time, the better long-term your chances are of actually doing this. Because if we go ahead and put you on Mary's Mini right now, we were like, let's be as hardcore as possible. Let's be on Mary's Mini for 6 months. First of all, you're never going to make it to 6 months. Second, what happens then? You've been holding on. And that's what it feels like. And that's what dieting feels like. It feels like just holding on until you get there. And I don't want you feeling like that. I want you to be doing something that you can sustain for as long as it takes to get to the finish line. So my approach with my patients is, let's start on the regular plan. Let's see what your body does. If your body's losing weight at a nice, comfortable rate, stick there until it's not. And then when the weight loss starts to slow down, then we do things like go, well, how many muffins are you making? And, how often are you eating whatever, nuts or whatever? And then we start, selecting, okay, well, maybe this, maybe that. Again, that is an advantage of going through the program. I know I sound like I'm trying to sell the program. I promise you all, I am not. Honestly, I am not. And if you are not ready to make the time or financial investment in the program, please do not. I totally get that. But one nice thing is that you have a support specialist all the way through. So like Kathy and Cheryl, we are going to hit that wall at some point where their weight loss slows down and we have to start looking at, okay, what's still in? Can we cut the amount of bread you're eating each week by half? Or can we, go ahead and stop using dates in the recipes or something like that, It's nice to have someone who's kind of more of like an expert on what exactly kind of tweaks really work when the scale gets stuck. And then we stay there until we're not happy with the rate of weight loss again. And then we further tweak. But I'm much more a fan of that. It's a much more graceful approach rather than just cutting everything out at the beginning and going, I'm going to be doing this for a year and a half. Like, no one is going to be able to sustain that.
And that makes total sense. And I've said, I appreciate you saying that too, because I always like to say the disclaimers that none of us get a bonus when you buy the program. So it has not, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not making any money off of this. What we're trying to do is explain how our process is going, and you see if it seems like a fit for you. Mm-hmm. The support was super extra. So you wanted to address, someone had asked if the 12-day program, if they could work during it.
Yeah, like what the time commitment is. And I would have to say I did work during it, and it was a little difficult.
She works from home already, so let me be real clear about that.
I work from home, and so I was working a lot when the program was going on. And even though we had breaks in the afternoons on Eastern time, it still was pretty challenging to try to juggle work with that. So if I had to do it again, I would have taken Kathy's advice, and I would have signed up from the get-go, and I would have taken the time off work. But it happened how it needed to happen for me to get on board. So I wouldn't change what happened. And I mean, like I've said every time we get on here, like you can't deny what kind of evidence is right in front of your face.
Yeah, so. and it's just one of those things, because I'm seeing a few different people in here too. They're saying, and I didn't think I was going to lose any weight. Mm-hmm. So that I came in, I'm like, should we be maximum weight loss, because we were already pretty close.
We thought we were close.
Yeah, and that was some of the things. So some of it is what the story your brain tells you, right? So we've got that. But then also just, because I was like, I'm really not going to learn that much, because I'm decently smart and I read a lot. But there's a difference, too, in being able to ask Dr. McDougall questions. Mm-hmm. And to just be involved with a whole supportive group. So to me, the support and the doctor's visits alone are worth it. Then you add in the 12-day program, which does kind of keep you in it, because it's not always easy to do something for a week. It's certainly not always easy to do something for 12 days or almost 2 weeks. So I think that's a good time to have something start to break or connect, one or the other. And I do think, like,
our cohort has been like really, really successful. I feel like that we still like really help each other a lot. Like,
yeah, we have meetings every Tuesday morning, which I missed today, and I'll feel a little sad. And actually, Joe popped in. I don't know if you guys saw Joe in the comments and to us, and he's in our cohort. He's amazing. Yeah. Then on Sunday evenings we have another one, but also then for all the cohorts ever, there's a Wednesday meeting, and then I think it's twice a month on Thursdays you get a Q&A with Dr. McDougall that just continues. So you get some of this support even past the year. But the main, like, juicy part seems to be here. I'll tell you if that changes and how it feels like, as I think we're pretty close on getting, how many more appointments do we have before we go to once a month from once a week with you? I think it's soon, isn't it?
Yeah, we have 2 more weeks. So the last week of September is your last weekly, and then it switches over to monthly.
Cool. Okay, so that's going to be another thing that we'll probably talk about too. Like, even though the appointments aren't really long, though I've not worked with Tiffany, I can say with Stacy, you can cover a lot in 10 minutes. Yes. Like, I feel like we cover you probably need to take a little break after you talk to us.
Not at all. I love meeting with y'all. And I will admit, our appointments are 10 minutes long, and then there's a 5-minute buffer between each appointment. And I 100% of the time talk through the 5-minute buffer.
So Cheryl and I, we call the Zoom link on one thing, and then we just pass it over. So
I love it.
Hopefully make it easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was an insomnia. Someone was saying, what tips would you give if someone's having trouble with insomnia? Is there something that you have a tip on? Oh, you
That's a
look so
tough
sad
one.
saying it.
It's so sad to me. Well, lacking sleep is the worst, isn't it? I mean, is there anything worse than being sleep deprived? I just don't know if there is. But so, there's all kinds of the typical things. The only thing I usually point out to people that they're usually shocked by, and I hope I'm getting this number right, but what I was taught is that coffee's half-life is 17 hours, which means it takes 17 hours for half of the amount of caffeine that's in coffee to exit your body. And so people are really surprised. They go, "Oh, I have insomnia and I only have 1 cup of coffee in the morning." And Dr. McDougall is always very quick to point out that there's still that caffeine, that coffee is still in your system when you go to bed at night that evening. And for a lot of people, especially younger people, that may not affect them at all, or they may not perceive that it affects them at all. But as we age, our tolerance for those types of things seems to really diminish. And so, yep, me
Oh,
too. Me
I
too.
remember the night I was 41 and I had iced tea with my dinner and I was up till 3:30 in the morning. It all happened all at once for me. And I'm like, I had a glass of tea. But
Right.
so I find over the pandemic for a while, I was also on Wellbutrin, which helps your anxiety go up, and my anxiety went up, and I was drinking caffeine, so I had to have no caffeine for a couple of years. Now I can have one a couple times a week early, but as we were not sleeping as well, I've been kind of pulling back on that. And what I'll do, if you guys are really into your coffee habit, because I do love a nice frothy soy milk every once in a while, is I love Ticino. And there's other brands. So why do you love Ticino? Because I can get things like, I think it's butterscotch cream flavored and vanilla nut. Like I'm into the you know, flavors and the smells and the whatever, but it's just grain coffee, and you can make it ahead of time and keep it in the fridge and warm it up or not. And also, I'm feeling pretty. I usually am not pro chamomile, but this week I'm feeling real pro chamomile tea too, because I think there's something about when we
Was
drink.
that what we drank the other night?
Yeah, it was chamomile with lemon.
Both of us it really just relaxed us, and just that was the first night we went to bed at a normal time.
At a normal time, and I think some of it was that, but I think Cheryl and I, when we through the pandemic, we really created an evening tea dessert kind of. So we got to have a treat. It wasn't really dessert, but we would sit there and we'd talk, and if it's warm enough, we'd sit outside, and it seemed really special and relaxing. I think what can be not so relaxing that I do is work until I get ready to go down and brush my teeth.
And still working when you get done brushing your teeth.
Maybe I have my iPad. I'm doing a little more answering of the questions. But yeah, I would also look and see, are you really giving yourself a chance to decompress? Because I don't.
Yeah, there's one other suggestion I have, and that is some people, and I can say this from experience because this is me. Some people have a drop dead time, which is a terrible term. But what it is if I don't go to sleep by that time, very strangely, I will get a second wind. And I will be all the way awake suddenly. And I could be just dead, dog tired up until that time. And if I pass over that threshold, and for me, that's 11 p.m., I have to be asleep before 11 p.m. I know that sounds crazy early to most of you. I have 4 kids. I am done at the end of the day. But if I stay up past 11, then I really struggle to go to sleep, even if I was exhausted right before that.
She was pointing at me and saying me, because then what'll happen is if I go past it, then she comes down a couple hours later, she talks to me, and then she goes to sleep. And then about 3:30, I'm still reading, because I'm I feel that same thing too. And I know I haven't been doing a good job of it, so that's why I have so many suggestions, because these are things that I'm planning on trying. But no, I love that. I think it's so important to know yourself well enough to figure out where that stopping point is. It's hard for me because I get excited, and when I'm excited and I'm ready to do a thing, then I'm in the thing 1,000%, and I don't know what time it is.
Yeah.
Now, kind of talking about time, but a little bit different, is Rill is saying, I'm very clock driven, talking about appetite and hunger. If it's after 11 and before 1, it's lunchtime. And I'm wondering if that interferes with like hunger cues or things like that. And she said she's loving the discussion.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I can't see any of the comments. And so I'm sitting here thinking they could be saying, like, you're terrible, be quiet, go away.
Oh, they
and I
love
wouldn't
you.
even know.
No. I'm trying to pull them out. So what's happening, the reason I have to keep looking over here is none of my YouTube comments showed up. So
usually she's dragging them off so you can see them.
So that you can see them too, but they're all over on the side. But I'm trying to also, you keep seeing me look away when I put you on the screen, because there's a bunch of them. Everybody loves you. They're so excited about this conversation. Awesome talk. Just joined in live. Someone even said there's still time to click the like button. So there's all these like, no, you're getting all the positive comments. I promise you.
Okay, good. Thank you all so much for your support. I just want to say, because I forgot to say it at the beginning, I have never done this before, ever, in my whole life. So this is my first live performance.
It feels that way though, doesn't it?
I'm going to sing. I'm going to sing at the end of this. So you guys didn't know this is a performance, but you're about to find out.
Ooh,
yes. I'm just
excited
kidding.
for that.
I'm definitely not. Okay, but back to, I think, Will's question.
Rill, R-I-L-L, Rill.
Oh, Rill, I'm sorry.
Isn't that a beautiful
Rill.
name?
That is a beautiful name, and I love unique names that I've never heard before. I'm like, Rill, love it. Okay, Rill's question was about timing and how normally they are just, it's between 11 and 1, so it's lunchtime. It's between 5 and 7, it's dinner. That's fine. We are creatures of habit and routine, and that is a very good thing. And what you probably find, Rill, is that you actually do get hungry at those times because that's what your body's accustomed to. I would just encourage you to still try to pay attention to your hunger cues, because that was one thing that realized me when I started paying attention, was that I would get hungry. Well, what used to happen is I would eat breakfast, and then I'd get hungry again at like 10:30 or 11. And then I'd say to myself, because this is what diet culture teaches us, you cannot eat until lunchtime. You better not eat, and I would be miserable until the clock struck 12. And then at that arbitrary number, I could run into the kitchen and get something to eat. So I would say it's okay if you have a routine. Be completely willing to step outside your routine if you get hungry outside of those times.
You know what that reminds me of? I'm older than you, but so during school, like elementary school and stuff like that, you would have the weirdest lunch times. I remember when I had a 10:15 lunchtime, right? Because they do these weird breaks. I don't know if they still do this. And I remember being home for the summer, and it was 10:15. I'm ready for lunch, and my mom was like, "It's not time for lunch." And I'm like, "Oh yes, it is. This is how I've been eating. I've been trained that now is time for food." So it is very interesting to think about that it's easy to train ourselves in, and then evidently, as we're younger, train ourselves into 11:30 the next year or whatever. And we have tons of good questions. So I'll give you. Do you want to?
Sure, I'll do. So I can't see the name.
Okay, I will read the question out loud.
Even with my glasses now, I can't read it.
That was hilarious.
Arella asks,
if the diabetes doesn't reverse during the 12-day McDougall program, is the amount of medication diabetics take reduced? And I will put usually on the end of that, because obviously when you're talking about any kind of medical diagnosis, it could be different person to person, and there's a lot more involved in that. So maybe if we could take that and say, if someone's in the McDougall 12-day program and their diabetes doesn't completely reverse,
and it won't
that
fast,
they are not taking any medication, could their medication be lowered?
Yes. So basically, the way that Dr. Lim approaches it is he will do like an observational, approach where you may come into the program and he immediately is looking at your numbers, your medical history, and he's looking at your medications, and he goes, okay, we're going to go ahead and reduce or eliminate this medication right now because I can tell that you're not going to need it. So he'll go ahead and just right out of the gate take it out. Oftentimes, though, he takes more of the approach of, okay, let's start the diet, start the program, you're on the diet, and let's see what happens to your numbers. And then he'll begin to reduce your numbers over time. Then if you haven't completely reversed, meaning, let's just say for the sake of argument, what we're not talking about is reversal. What we're talking about is you no longer need medication, okay? So if you no longer need any medication at all, or maybe you need just a little bit, what he'll do is at the end of the program, he'll give you guidance about, okay, well, your numbers are here. And in this case, we'd be talking about fasting blood glucose numbers. Your numbers are here right now. When they're consistently in this range, whatever range it is that he gives you, then you may want to reduce this medication again or stop taking this medication. But the other beautiful thing is that you can always come back and see him. So those are fee-based visits. So everybody gets 3 visits with Dr. Lim as a part of the program. That's included. And those are usually at the beginning of the program, middle of the program, and right at the end of the program that you visit with Dr. Lim. But then let's say you have an ongoing medical concern, and you need medication support. You can always come back and book a visit with him. There's a fee, just like when you go see the doctor, there's a fee involved. There is a fee, but that's a nice way. I usually have patients, especially if they're on a lot of medications or like kind of a little bit scary medications, I'll tell them, hey, check back in with Dr. Lim every few months and see if he, and then sometimes they'll just send them an email and say, my numbers are in this range that you told me about. What do you think? Is it time, to stop this med? And he'll say, yeah, go for it. And then report back to me if your numbers get here or look weird or whatever, whether it be blood pressure or blood glucose or whatever the numbers are.
Yeah.
I hope that answered.
I think that was a great answer, because I think the thing is that what you don't see from the outside as much is how much doctors are involved. Like, I've said this before, but like my meetings with you, Stacy, or our meetings with you, often translated in you passing on a question to Dr. Lim or you passing a question to Dr. McDougall, it getting answered in our daily live, right? And you can, and Dr. McDougall loves it if you just show your face on a Zoom and ask a question, he will answer you. At least in our cohort, he was just like, woo! When everybody's just typing it in, he's not as excited.
I would say he probably really likes to answer your emails as well, because I had to email after our interview with Chef AJ, and he responded within 15 minutes.
It was, yeah.
I was like, whoa, I didn't expect to hear from him for a day or two, and it was there.
And so it is kind of amazing the amount of response and the way the team works and all the talking. So we're kind of jumping way back to when we were saying someone's been doing this for a while, still has 20 pounds to lose, right? And so I have 2 questions, or an answer and a question. So the answer from Trinity is, I only eat based on the maximum weight loss format, no dry starches, no nuts, no dried fruits, etc. And, okay, sorry, I'm losing my way here.
That was the same person.
Yeah, and wants suggestions on losing those last 20 pounds following the McDougall way. So it's all the same person. So now we have a little more information, and I'll keep looking, and I may interrupt if I find more information.
Well, first of all, you know me, Kathy and Cheryl, so I have a million more questions for her. And obviously this is not the right format. This is why you need me to be your support specialist, because I will investigate all the way down to the bottom. But So there's other considerations. If you're a woman, if you're over 50, if you're 5 feet tall or shorter, you're going to have a harder time. So women in those bodies, those tiny midlife bodies, just have a harder time losing weight because they just don't burn as many calories as a man. How many of us have known a man, and men, I know there's men listening right now. You may walk around with like a guilt complex because you lose weight so much faster than your sister or your wife or your brother or your partner or whatever, and that is, it can be maddening, but men generally burn more calories than women. Men generally are a little larger, carry more muscle on their frames. And so that's what that is. Likewise, a 5'6" woman who's 32, for example, is going to burn more calories than a 5-foot, 65-year-old woman. And that's just the way of life. And so oftentimes what happens is people who fall into those categories may need to do some extra tweaking. So when someone tells me they're on maximum weight loss, my question is, what is your proportions of starches to non-starchy vegetables? Because oftentimes people will be really trying to hit that 50-50 plate. Now, first of all, if you remember, the 50-50 plate is a part of maximum weight loss. It is Dr. McDougall's principle of, listen, it's not that everybody should be at 50-50 to lose weight. It's that we don't want you going below 50% starch. And people think that they're going to game the system or lose even faster if they do dip below that 50%. And it's not always intentional. Like sometimes what they'll do is they'll make like a vegetable and bean soup, right? And that'll be their starch. And then they'll have a side salad. And they're like 50-50 because they're about the same size by visual volume. But they're forgetting that soup has water and vegetables. So that is not straight starch, right? So you're actually more probably working for like 25-75 at that point. And that is way too low. I'll tell you why that could actually potentially trip up your weight loss. So if you're doing things like that, if you're eating less than 50% starch by visual volume and you're still not losing weight, something that may be happening is that because you're not eating enough sustaining food. That's what starch is. It will sustain you. It fills you up and it sustains you. You are systematically eating all day. And so what happens is you eat a gigantic salad, for example, with like a couple little pieces of potato. You eat that, you're full because you've eaten the volume and it's stretching, it's hitting those stretch receptors in your stomach, but you're not satisfied because you don't have enough calories. And so what's going to happen is you're going to be hungry half an hour later, if that. I mean, sometimes it's a lot faster than that. So then you go back and you go, well, shoot, it didn't work. I better eat an apple. Again, an apple is not starch. It's more starchy than, greens in a salad, but it's not a starch. And so you eat your apple and then like 15 minutes later, you're still hungry. Oh no, what am I going to do? I've already eaten my starch. So they go and get carrots, and it's like they're just constantly going back and back and back and back. And they're eating all these very low calorie things that will never fill them up and will never sustain them. It may fill them volume wise briefly before they're very quickly digested. And so then in the end, they have to go back and get the starch anyway. So what ends up happening is you're eating an outrageous amount of fruits and vegetables, trying to chase and address that hunger when ultimately what you needed was starch. And so you actually end up overshooting your calories because you're never addressing your hunger. Now, I should have disclaimed this. Before I started answering this question, I should have said, this is an observation that I have made. You do not hear us talking about this that much because it's a relatively new thing that I personally have been noticing and observing with my patients. So, if you go and talk to Dr. McDougall, he may say to you like, I don't know, I don't think that's right, whatever. And that's fine. That's totally fine. I'm just telling you what I see a lot, especially with small ladies who are down to that last 10, 15, 20 pounds. They're eating outrageous amount, that like huge, gigantic salads, trying to gain less and less and less starch because they're not losing the weight. So they think that the solution is to decrease the starches. I know it's counterintuitive, but the solution is usually actually the opposite, to increase your starches. And then you won't be required to go back for 15,000 servings of carrots all day long, trying to chase and address the hunger.
I think that makes trying to poke Cheryl because she's like on camera again. She's checking her phone for work. It's very interesting, and I think that some of the things that happens too is a little bit of information overload. I hate to say misinformation because some bodies do differently than other bodies and things like that. And there's all different kinds of whole food, plant-based, no oil programs. And someone had mentioned how is Esselstyn's program possibly different? I think it's pretty close, but there, and you may know a better answer. I think it's a little, isn't Dr. Esselstyn's slightly more restrictive just because he's working with actively ill heart patients?
Yes. So Esselstyn, you will hear that he does not want his patients having nuts at all, ever. And that's based on his work in cardiac stuff, specifically for heart patients, people with known cardiac problems. But the other thing is, and I think the distinguishing thing is that it's not starch centered necessarily. Whereas Dr. McDougall is saying starch is your food. That is what most people need to eat the most of, is starch. So I don't think the Esselstyns put as much quite of an emphasis on the starch, although, I mean, of course, obviously you have to eat starch. That's the only way you're going to get the calories that you need, eating a whole foods plant-based diet and avoiding nuts and seeds.
And I do think sometimes we think about tricking things. Like I will say, when I wasn't feeling good for a week, and so what I had done is cooked a bunch of white sweet potatoes and regular potatoes, and I just ate them cold out of the fridge because I didn't feel very good, and I'd be hungry. And later on, I was like, oh, I'm probably going to be really sad that I didn't eat enough vegetables with that. Not that it's not a vegetable. But honestly, I didn't gain anything doing that. And I kind of wondered because I was like, I feel like I'm being naughty. But literally, I'm eating a baked sweet potato with a fork out of the fridge. How naughty is that? Let's but I think the back of my mind, whenever I go, oh, I did this and I did that, even for last week, I'm like, I should have had more steamed vegetables. I should have had more salad. I should have had more of this. And
yeah, that's the first place your brain goes to.
I think we've been conditioned to think that, right? Because, oh, I'm fat, so I should be having a salad with a lemon wedge. Like all the women's magazines say. And like there's still a few of the grocery store women's magazines that every time you walk there, you're seeing how someone lost 100 pounds doing something stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not all of them, maybe only 40% of the stupid. I ate all bananas for 4 years. Okay, I don't want to know about that. Or like we've talked about, or everyone has talked about some of the side effects of keto, which, so you can do all kinds of things to lose weight, but the whole thing about the Dr. McDougall and the starch solution is it's about gaining health first, and losing weight just
is
happens,
a byproduct of
right?
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm going, okay, Dr. McDougall says I need to walk 10 miles a day. No, he doesn't. Dr. McDougall goes, take a walk if you want to.
Right.
He's kind of, and it's not like he would be loosey-goosey. I'm sure that if we stopped losing weight and we started getting unhealthy, he'd have some severe things to say to us. In my mind, he would, at least. But, it's very reasonable. And I think that's one of the things. And we're not to the point where we're tweaking So I'm really thankful for you kind of bringing out some of this information too, because we're just not there yet. We're still on the loosey-goosey, okay, well, we did something out of character and we only lost half a pound, whereas somebody else who maybe has 5 pounds to lose, that would be a much more disastrous situation for their goals. But Meg is saying, I love all of this. I've been doing the Starch Solution for a year, read the book, lost 47 pounds already. Congratulations.
Fantastic.
30 to go. Been stuck, and this is what I needed to hear.
Fantastic.
And Diana was saying, is the McDougall way a 50-50 plate? And I think that's a good generalization. Would you say that as well, or do you say that is what it is?
So is the question that she's asking, is the McDougall way of eating a 50-50 plate?
Yeah, that's what she asked.
No, absolutely not. Unequivocally, no.
Ooh.
That is not the case. So Dr. McDougall will tell our patients at almost every single program that he eats 90% starch. And then Mary will elbow him and tell him he's wrong, which is beautiful. It literally happens at every program. And she tells him, no, remember last night we ate the da-da-da with the salad? And he's like, okay, maybe it was 80. But the point he's trying to make is, no, most people can eat much more starch than 50%, especially if you're just maintaining your weight. So once you lose weight, you no longer need to be in a calorie deficit to maintain. So you end up eating a few more calories. Well, unfortunately, the reason why you see all your family, friends, and neighbors gain all their weight back, and I've done it before, so I can speak to this also, is that they just go right back to how they were eating before. When really what you need to do is increase your starch. You increase your starch to lose weight. You maybe decrease it a degree to gain weight. No, opposite. You increase your starch to increase the number of calories that you're taking in the day. And then some people need to start including more like dry and sprinkle in some nuts and seeds here and there. And that's how they maintain their weight. But a 50-50 plate is not a prescription by the McDougall program. What's difficult, you guys, is, well, first of all, let me just say, all these YouTubers that are out there talking about the 50-50 plate and how they lost weight and stuff, bravo to them. I mean, awesome. Like, they're doing so much for so many people. I cannot thank them enough for all the work that they're doing, and it's awesome. But unfortunately, what happens a lot of times is people end up at the McDougall program and they are very confused about how the McDougall program is not a 50-50 plate. They're so shocked by that. And that's because what happened was, in maximum weight loss specifically, Dr. McDougall's suggestion was that you could go as low as 50% of your food being starch. You could go as low as that, but don't go lower, because all the research that they've done has said that when you go below 50%, then you deal with hunger and you're chasing hunger all the time and you're not satisfied. So 50% is the lowest you would want to go. So
see, we were wondering too, because like I have seen a couple of other like bloggers and YouTubers talk about 50-50 plate, and I guess in my head, and it's just in my head, who knows who had this conversation, I was thinking with Mary's Mini. So to me, Mary's Mini, I would have half a plate of potato and half a plate of, obviously, I don't think you can do tortillas in Mary's Mini, which is why I'm not interested in doing it anymore. Like, I was like, you give me corn and I get a tortilla. I can do Mary's Mini for the rest of my life. Thank you very much. So that's why I was like, we can do that. But, so I think when I'm thinking very simply, or if we're just doing, because sometimes we will just have a baked potato, we'll heat that up, put sauce, and I'll probably get about 50% steamed vegetables. But there's someone who has a plate that is a 50-50 plate, a literal plate, wine.
Right.
And so, okay, that's super helpful.
And now it makes all the sense in the world why some days I am still hungry, because I've done half my plate rice and half my plate vegetables, and I'm really still hungry.
Right.
That just like a light bulb just went off.
Yes. So when it comes to fullness, there's two major things that you're trying to hit. You need to hit volume because you want that food hitting your stretch receptors in your stomach. So volume, size, right? But you also need density. You need calorie density because your body can register very easily if it's gotten the calories that it's demanding from you. And if it hasn't, it's going to continue to ask for that. And if you keep going back and getting the vegetables, you're never going to be giving your body the answer it's looking for. And so you just chase that hunger all day long. I always tell people, people come to me all the time. They say, I'm hungry all the time. I'm hungry. More potatoes, more oatmeal, more beans. I am literally never saying you need to eat more salad, more carrots, more apples. No, never. That's never the answer.
And you have never said that to us too. And I just think, you remember when we first, I think it was the second or third day before Cheryl was even a part of the program, and you were so sweet, and you were talking, because we were like, we both feel so guilty. We were eating 2 big bowls of oatmeal, and we've talked about this here before, because like the guilt was real. Because like, so we're doing the opposite of everything someone has ever told me to do, and like, I don't even know how many calories are in that oatmeal, but I do know that there's like 1/8 of the amount of oatmeal in a serving cup that we could get to take with us, right? So we're eating like a lot of oatmeal.
We were going to get those little travel cups. And we looked at them and we're like, we have to eat like 4 of those, right?
Right, absolutely. Oatmeal is a great example because I cannot even tell you how many people come to me and say, oh, I've tried eating oatmeal for breakfast, but I can't because I'm hungry half an hour later. And I ask them, well, how much oatmeal are you eating? And see, this is where calories can be a little bit useful information because they'll say, oh, well, I just used the package directions. I just used, the half a cup of dry oats. And I'm like, okay, that's 150 calories. That is not enough. That is not a meal. Your body sees that as a nice little snack. Okay, that is not enough oatmeal. And so I challenge people, try oatmeal again. It is filling if you eat enough of it. But the problem is cooked oatmeal is around 325 calories per pound. That is as low as you can get without going into vegetables and fruit. Okay, so it's very low, which is why it's so great for weight loss. But you're going to need to eat a much larger portion of it than what's on the package for your body to count that as a meal.
And one of the things that I had learned, I haven't been in the weight loss world much, but we were losing some weight years ago, and someone was talking about how they were slow cooking oatmeal. I was already doing it because I was a slow cooker recipe developer, but adding extra water let them eat more of it for the same calories, which I'm not saying is why we do it now, but I think that we don't always think that sometimes adding all this water is diluting that, because we're splitting 1 cup of dry steel cut oats. And we don't always eat our entire half cup, and sometimes we eat our half cup and a little bit of the other person's. But it comes from just this mentality of you're not supposed to have that much, right?
Every time you ask me if I want some more, I always I get a little cringy because I'm like, yes, I do, but then I feel like a pig for saying I do, but it doesn't seem to. It
hasn't affected us in a negative way, for sure. And the thing is I used to get oatmeal. This is not the perfect example of a McDougall thing, but this is in the past. So when I was working, I would go to Starbucks and I get oatmeal, and you get this little thing of oatmeal, and you are hungry in about a half an hour. You're just like, I'm starving, and I just ate breakfast.
Yeah.
Whereas now, when we eat oatmeal until we're full. And some people are saying, rice never fills me up, but potatoes do, Mona says. And Debbie is also saying that at least 50% starch, that's the least, is a revelation.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we will do a better job at reiterating as well. Because I think I've just been hearing 50-50 enough. I was like, oh, well, everybody knows better. Just the same way as I'm like, everybody knows I should only have this much oatmeal, right? And instead of going, I can ask Stacy, or I could I don't know,
Right.
listen to my body too.
Yeah.
I mean, what Stacy does for me a lot of times is helps me work out things faster than my body could do it on its own and my brain, and perhaps I will obsess less and get less of those cortisol around that are also unhelpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, potatoes, that was one of the things I do remember Dr. McDougall saying, that satiety, on the satiety scale, I always have to think about that word very hard, to say, is that potatoes are the things that make you feel the fullest, the quickest, and I don't know anyone, I've never met anyone who didn't like potatoes.
Yeah.
Well, it's a that even though that's true, like there's actual science to back up that potatoes are the most satisfying or satiating food on the planet. Someone just commented this. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name, but she said, potatoes fill me better than rice, or rice fills me better than potatoes. It's very individual. So I just talked to somebody today who said potatoes do not fill me up. I said, try rice, and she goes, oh yeah, rice fills me up, and I'm like, then eat rice.
Yeah. And I love that though too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the same thing that I hope to attain, is like looking and seeing what my body, maybe my body decides for a while it wants sweet potatoes, that it's all team sweet potatoes, or it's all team quinoa, or whatever it wants to be team of. I want to be on its team too. But I think everybody's kind of saying things too, like, yay potatoes. I could eat a truckload of rice and still be hungry. Pasta's the same for me. I go for root vegetables and legumes for my starches, and it's really interesting. Diana also says it's funny when people see how much food you eat and think you're eating too much.
Oh, yes.
And I have an attitude about that these days.
Yeah.
I do not have a safe for broadcast way of saying it out loud, so I will not. But it's not nice, and they should just mind their own business, because here's the thing. Why do they need to be thinking about your food and what you're eating?
Yeah.
And it can be really hard, and I noticed this in our cohort and other things, like when you're getting healthier, we all want everybody to get healthier with us. So I can see that, and sometimes it can be misguided because your carnivore relative and your keto relative want that for you, right? And we're like, yeah, no. So they're going to feel the same way a little bit when we're doing it to them. But it just seems like people want to go out and be like in people's business when they need to clean up their own business. So like I've had someone say, well, you're fat, I'm scared to make your recipes. And I'm like, my recipes aren't your problem. Also, if you're trim, why are you scared of making fat recipes? Anyhow, it has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with, Chef AJ is also trim. Eats even a more detailed eating plan than McDougall. She makes my recipes all the time, right? So sometimes I have to take a step back, look at it logically. So obviously, because my female imposter syndrome will kick in like a hurricane in a half second. I'll be like, oh, I must be wrong. Or someone, well, what are you eating? Why does it, like I'm happy to share our journey and what's going well, but I'm also not going to rehash 4 years ago, because that doesn't mean anything to anybody, right?
Yeah. Can I say one quick thing about that, Kathy?
Absolutely. You can say a bazillion. What are you trying to do?
Well,
I was trying to move.
She's trying to move the laptop with the wrong mouse. So I'm like, why do you just keep moving this mouse? Sorry about that, Stacy.
I am absolutely convinced that all 90 people who are here are just here to watch the two of you do your magic, because you are so amazing, so entertaining. Like that would be enough. Even if we had nothing valuable to actually say, just watching the two of you guys, it reminds me so much of my marriage. And I'm like,
well, yeah, it's very obvious we're married, right? I think you get that. But no, yeah.
Yes.
But tell us what you want to tell me.
Okay, so I have two things to say. One is, have you noticed in this conversation how many shoulds we have been discussing, oh, well, you should eat this and not that. You shouldn't need that much food. You shouldn't listen to somebody who has some weight to lose about what to eat. You should, there's so many society imposed, diet-minded principles and rules that we are all in chains to, that any of us who have been dieting for any length of time have taken these on almost as like truth, and I am telling you, like 60% of what I do with my patients who want to lose weight is deprogram them. Honestly, that's what I am doing all day, every day, is deprogramming them. They will get a giant bowl of oatmeal and immediately say, instead of going, oh, wow, I ate oatmeal instead of bacon and eggs. That's fantastic. They're like, I shouldn't have needed that much oatmeal. I should have taken less. I should. And it's just, those things are not even real. Those aren't actual rules. They're actually totally misguided. And what you really need to be doing is trusting that this body of yours that is programmed in all these magnificent, amazing ways to keep you alive and ultimately to keep you healthy. Nobody's body wants to have diabetes. Nobody's body wants to have a heart attack. In fact, most of us, when we're diagnosed with heart disease or diabetes, it's after decades of abuse, which shows you how much your body wants to be alive, that you made it that far, with that terrible abuse. And your body, and also on the flip side, I know you all don't get to see this as much as I do, but your body wants to heal so badly, and it does it so rapidly when you're giving it the right things. So I trust this machine so much more than I trust, whoever invented Jenny Craig. I assume it's Jenny Craig, or whoever, in Cosmo magazine or Women's World or whatever, that's been speaking to us all since adolescence about all the different.
I have to tell you this because, there's all these great things, but this is the best comment so far. Apple says, okay, I've got a big crush on Stacy while you're talking right now. But everybody's so happy, and just so you know, too, everyone's like, can Stacy come back? And I hope we get to see her again soon.
Yes, of course. I would love to.
And we can talk about this later, too, because you're welcome to be on as often as you want to. So, but all of these things are so great because, as I'm being real clear with everybody, I think we're being as transparent as we know how during this whole process, good and bad, whatever's happening. But we're still in a little corral, right? Because we're in our experience. And with you being outside of the experience, and you can talk about what happens to us and other people, I think that that's such a huge insight. I mean, I know it's something you've been bringing to us for the past 2 months, but I think it means a lot for people to see this. And I think, I know that in the limited amount of time that I've been talking about the Dr. McDougall program, there's some misconceptions, and I definitely would love, and we'll talk about if this is a possibility. So this may or may not be possible for you with your position, but I would love someone to come on to help compare and contrast the different doctors. I talked to Chef AJ, and she's like, I just prefer to talk about what the parts that are the same, so I may get that. Because I'm not trying to say that Dr. Esselstyn's is bad. It's nice to know, for me to know the differences, because even when I say something, I'm like, well, this is what I'm eating. However, if you're on Dr. Esselstyn's heart patient program, you should never listen to me. I'm a recipe developer, for Christ's sake, right? You should listen to the doctor. And that's one of the things I like about the McDougall program is there is a doctor. There's 2 doctors. And Stacy and Heather and other people too. Yeah. But I think that what I decided and what we talked about was it's great to learn about all these different programs, but it's going to get confusing. Yeah. And so that's why we label ourselves, right? We are doing the McDougall regular starch solution. Now, does that mean I will never make a recipe from Chef AJ? Of course not, right? It may mean that I don't do her whole reboot program as she's doing it, because I'm in the McDougall program, but I can learn from her and I can take some tasty, delicious things over into, because she's from the McDougall world as well and has added what works for her body. Right? And so again, I think it's one of those things we always think if we pick one, okay, I've picked. So now it's all going to be great and the weight's just going to pour off just because I picked something. And I think that is as unrealistic then. If I understand what all the doctors do and I boil it down, then I will have the perfect thing to do. Because I don't think that there's perfect. And maybe you feel differently, but I think perfect is something that's just not obtainable in anything.
Yeah, I think what's difficult is that all of the doctors that we're talking about in the plant-based world are wonderful and have contributed amazing things. And if you pick one and follow any one of them and you are consistent, you'll likely have very good results. So you're never going to get me going, oh no, don't follow Dr. Esselstyn, follow Dr. McDougall. I will never say that. I work for Dr. McDougall. There is no bigger McDougall cheerleader than Stacy Cross. There isn't, because I really believe in what we do and I really believe in the message. But if you've been following Esselstyn and you're doing that, and you have, especially if you have a heart condition or you're post heart attack or something like that, and it's working for you, why in the world would you change? I think the problem is when people start, they don't stick with one thing and just do it. They start taking this from this and this from there and this from that. And eventually there's nothing to eat, and they're miserable and they're confused.
Are you doing Dr. McDougall or Dr. Esselstyn and you see Dr. Greger says you should have nuts every day, and then you're like, well, now I'm confused. Well, you're confused, but it would be like, we do it, there are laws in North Carolina about this, and there's laws in South Carolina about that. And so I can't go to South Carolina and go, well, that's the way we do it where I'm from, right? So I think, if we look at it just being so, and again, it's not that it's wrong, and they're probably, who knows, maybe I can have nuts when this whole thing is done. I don't know yet. Like, my body may be like...
Can we talk about nuts for a minute?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So this is a thing that I have come up with to try to help these folks. We get a lot of folks coming from one of the doctors that you mentioned's philosophy about eating nuts every single day and how health promoting that is. And there's videos and all kinds of stuff out there about that, which is awesome. And that doctor is doing amazing work. But the way that I try to explain it to our patients, because it's usually when I'm having this conversation with someone, it's usually someone who's also trying to lose some weight. And they're like, oh, but I so have bought into this idea that I need to have a certain amount of nuts every day to be healthy. So how do I balance that? And then Dr. McDougall basically saying eliminate nuts during weight loss. And so what I have explained, how I've explained it to people is I've said this. Anytime that you are making decisions about your health, you really should be making them in order of a list of priorities. What is my top health priority right now? For some people, they come and their number one priority is to not have another heart attack because they've already had one. For some people, their number one priority is to stop a flare of MS, okay? And then for other people, for most of us, the actual number one health priority is weight loss. And the reason is because our weight is promoting disease, or at the very least, setting us up for potential disease. Weight loss, losing weight and getting into a healthy BMI, which kind of circles back. If you want me to talk about BMI, we can do that. But to get into your healthy BMI range automatically decreases, statistically speaking, your chances of poor health outcomes so substantially, more substantially than any other change you could make health-wise, is weight loss. Okay? So if you're carrying extra weight and that's kind of your main thing, then that's the first thing that needs to be addressed, isn't it? So we put the priority of getting down into a healthy BMI over whatever the health benefits of eating nuts every day may be. Do you see what I'm saying?
I totally see what
mere-
you're saying. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, we're not saying nuts are bad for you. We're saying nuts make it almost impossible to lose weight. And it's just the case, you know. Anyway, go ahead.
And yeah, that totally makes a lot of sense. And I think there, just like everything else, if you take bits and pieces out of a different places, like someone came on one of my forums and said, well, Dr. So-and-so says that if you don't have any fat in your diet, you're going to get dementia. And I said, Dr. McDougall is a no oil diet. That doesn't mean there's no fat in your diet. Oats, in fact, have a lot of fat, which is why I'm able to make cheese sauces and yogurt and all these beautiful foods with oats, is because they have fat in them. Right?
And they're talking about essential fatty acids, which you find in all plant foods. And unfortunately, people get confused when in reality, a high fat diet is associated with an increased incidence of dementia. So, you know, you always need to talk about what you're talking about. When people say, oh, you need fats, what fats are we talking about? Are we talking about the fat you find in oatmeal, or are we talking about the fat you find in fried chicken? You know what I mean? And they're not the same at all. And then they're saturated fat, you know. But here's the deal, and this is why I love the McDougall approach, is that you don't have to think about any of that. None of it. You don't have to sit there and measure your macros and figure out, do I have enough polyunsaturated globally gloop or whatever it is, you know? You're just eating a plant-based diet that is starch-centered, eating when you're hungry, stopping when you're comfortably full, rinse and repeat for the rest of your life. That's it. There's no balancing macros, micros, any of that kind of stuff. So,
it makes me very happy. Very, very happy about it. So just a few things. Carolyn says that makes perfect sense to me. Getting the weight off should be the number one priority for her, or if you're trying to lose weight. And again, Susanna said, follow one course until successful. And I like that. It's called Focus. So I hadn't heard that before. So, and she also loves the way that, Stacy, you're putting this. King's Child said this has been absolutely wonderful and freeing information. So it's really, I tend towards a McDougall-Esselstyn hybrid, and that sounds perfect. Meg says the show has made her whole day and that we rock. I think she means Stacy.
Oh,
Stacy does rock.
Thank you.
Now, Delia is saying, how about pasta? Can we eat a lot of pasta? And I'm going to let you talk about that for a minute.
We've talked about that, haven't we, ladies? In our time together. Okay, pasta, you guys. Pasta's a toughie. Okay, let me explain why. So pasta, cooked pasta, especially the whole grain varieties, they're actually very low in calorie density. And so you can eat pasta and lose weight, and pasta can be your starch of choice. And for some people, that works great. They eat pasta all the way through their weight loss journey, and they do just fine. My question to my patients is always, well, how much do you love pasta? I know Stacy can put in 3 to 4 cups of pasta, no problem. Don't even blink. I could eat a ton of pasta. And the reason why pasta seems to be an issue for some people, we think, is because it still is a processed grain. So it's ground into flour, and it may be a whole grain flour, which is fantastic, totally healthy and all that stuff. But we tend to be able to eat more of a flour product, like we can stuff it in more in our stomachs. And we tend to enjoy it more from like a taste and a mouthfeel perspective, because ultimately it's kind of partially digested for us, which is the same reason why we enjoy the feeling of white bread in our mouth. Now, some of you guys who haven't had white bread in a million years, you may not even like that feeling anymore, which is kind of fun. That's a fun transition that some people go through. But soft things that are like, not whole grain or are just easy in the mouth, your body prefers that, or your body prefers that. You may prefer those things because ultimately you're able to just stuff calories in, which is a survival. Like, eat when you can, get the calories while you can. I'm going way too deep into the weeds about this, but the pasta thing. So the pasta issue is the answer, like so often it is know thyself. Since I know that I can eat many, many, many cups of pasta, no problem, and before I get full, versus if I'm eating rice or I'm eating potatoes, I can eat far less volume-wise of potato or of rice than I can of pasta. I knew, and it became evident to me on the scale too during my weight loss journey, that pasta was not going to be my personal buddy. So I would have pasta once every other week. And I would always make sure that I had a really good vegetable to go with it, so that I was having some of that bulk coming from broccoli, for example. Broccoli for me is a really good bulky vegetable. And so I would have like a real big serving of broccoli, not too big, still making sure I never go below 50%. The pasta is 50% or more of the meal. And then just be careful with the pasta. What never ever worked for me is sitting down with the leftover pasta from the night and just chowing down. It's way too easy to pack in a ton of calories that way. So know yourself, experiment, see how you do. Can you eat a reasonable portion of pasta and feel satisfied? And if you can, then it should work for you just fine for weight loss. But there are a lot of people for which pasta is just not the best starch choice.
And that makes a lot of sense too. I mean, I definitely find with bread, like for me, it's super exciting that I can eat bread once a week because I wasn't able to eat wheat with my prior inflammation. I was having a lot of wheat sensitivity. So like cutting it down to once a week isn't that big a deal. So Penny says, does only using brown rice pasta make a difference? And I will also go ahead and add in, like we still have a lot of gluten-free pasta. So like we had chickpea pasta and things that I find that I will say for us, the chickpea pasta fills you up a lot faster and you're much less likely to, or we're much less likely to overeat on that than, let's say, if it was just semolina pasta.
Yeah.
So
well, chickpea pasta and like lentil pastas and those kinds of things are much more calorie dense too. So that's part of why they're so filling, is they're higher in calories. So I think it's all kind of the same, depending on how much you love pasta. If you just love pasta, you're going to potentially overeat on it. We want your food to be good for sure and enjoyable, but not so good that you can't stop eating when your stomach has had enough.
Right.
Well, I know Jeff Novak was talking about preloading. So I'm wondering, like, if we decided once a month, once Bonsai made angel hair pasta, my heart grew 7 sizes bigger. Bonsai. Because I hadn't had, angel hair was my favorite pasta and I wasn't able to get that for like 7 years. So what we usually do is I make a big, like the bowl we had, I make a big salad. And then we have probably about the same amount of pasta with some sauce. And then I make an oat parmesan to go on it. It's very fancy. It's not that fancy. And that feels okay, but I wouldn't want us to do it every week. But would preloading, because also Apple's saying pasta is a gateway food for her, and she doesn't have it in her home. So I think, that's amazing, because you know yourself and what you can and can't do. Like there are some foods we've definitely kept from the house at this point, like crackers. Crackers were a big thing for you, especially.
Yeah, I found those brown rice crisps, and they kind of give me that little bit of crunch I like on a salad. I just crunch them up on there, and that seems much better than actual crackers. They're unsalted. They're just basically like
Yeah,
rice.
and you don't eat nearly like we've had the same pack for over 2 weeks, whereas before, pull out a saltine, that pack is gone, and maybe 2 packs is gone. So I don't know if you would say preloading is better, or maybe just going ahead and finding where maybe it's a once a month or food, maybe it's a once a year food. What do you think is, or does it depend on the person completely?
It depends completely on the person. If because all the whole spectrum, right? Where you have some people that can just have, a couple
Okay.
like a couple servings of pasta and they're fine. And then there's other people who they will not stop. They will not stop eating pasta until they're sick. Um, I, I tend to be that way about like baked goods. If I get going on baked goods, it doesn't, I can't stop. So I don't have them in my house. I love that Apple said that. I mean, that's like so key, and so many are unwilling to do that or unable to because they live with people who like their trigger foods. And so there's all kinds of different things around that. But I find that the graceful approach is to get it out of your house and keep it out of your house until you feel more control around it. So, but pasta, I mean, it's most people are okay. Like I don't hear pasta being as huge of a trigger for people as things like potato chips or cake or baked goods, things like that.
Oh yeah, those are not in our house because, like, yeah, I would eat all the things. But we should wrap up. Cheryl actually has a doctor's appointment, but I appreciate you so much. Just
Yes.
period, and for coming on the show and sharing so much of your great information. Do you have?
Thank you. I hope that you'll come back and see us
I
again.
will. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. It has been so much fun. I hope everybody enjoyed it. You two are amazing. I cannot say enough about your journey and how amazingly you two are doing. I want everybody to know Kathy and Cheryl are a dynamic partnership. I mean, they have been amazing for one another. They decided, we're doing this, and they have not wavered from that. And I'm just so proud of you both. And I'm so proud of the community that you have built and how much you're doing for others now. I know that this is so impactful to so many people. Your impact is far reaching, and it is my honor to be here, and I would love to come back. So thank you for
Oh,
having
that
me.
makes me so happy because I would love it because everybody, like, once you come back in, it's going to take a little while for it to all the way upload, and then you'll get to see the chat maybe later tonight. And I would encourage you to come just because, like, people are just loving you so much. I'm going to let Cheryl sneak off. But you guys, thank you so much, as always, for being here and being so gracious to my guests, because I only have the best guests. So I appreciate that. And Stacy, maybe even some of the things that you wanted to get juicier about, we can make some different topics, but we'll talk right after this is over if you stay on. But everybody, so the one thing I want you to do is what I always want you to do. Do some one thing that's kind for yourself. And I tell you because it's hard for me to do that. So if that's take a walk, take a bath, go downstairs and read for a minute, whatever it is, just do 10 minutes for yourself. If you got just a little extra, be nice to the cashier, pet a dog. If you're just done with all the people, just pet a dog. And that can even count as self-care as far as I'm concerned. So Stacy, thank you so much. I can't wait for us to schedule another time. You guys try to come back tomorrow. Katya Gorbachova is going to be on, and we're going to talk about some other really cool things, okay? And I will see you guys very soon.